Muito boa tarde a todos, bem-vindos aqui à sessão 2 daqui a Fundação Rui Cunha. Vou falar em inglês, mas pronto, eu queria dar as boas-vindas porque eu também tenho público português aqui. Gostava de saudar toda a presença e depois, mas por uma questão de audiência e para todos perceberem, vamos utilizar a língua inglesa. So I was talking about we will use the English language today because to have a wider audience because we have many communities here. Today the topic is Blue Wave Generation Surfing Without Limits. Is once again one more event of the Macanese Youth Association, AJM. We're trying to enhance not only about the culture of the Macanese, but also many topics or issues we can also discuss about daily life of Macau. So this is the intention. That's why we collaborate with the Requiem Foundation. I want once again to thank you, the Requiem Foundation, to have this logistic space so we can have some talks and collaborations and many more collaborations in the future. Today we have Jackie Ho. Jackie Ho is the speaker today. I will just have a brief biography. He completed his studies in health science at the Faculty of Medicine and Health from the University of Sydney, Australia, specialized in gerontology, dementia, and sleep science. He is currently the Dean of the Faculty of Health Science, co-dean of the USJ Academy for Cellular Nutrition and Health, and the director of Macau Observatory for Social Development at the USJ. Before we start the talk, Jackie, because I want to present Jerusa. Jerusa also is our vice president. She will also join us here as a moderator today. Jerusa also is a part of USJ, so I think it's important to enhance. We also want to take this opportunity to thank USJ because this event is also a collaboration with the University of St. Joseph. I will now pass to Jerusa because she has the questions. Of course, I will then, in the middle, also moderate as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Antonio, and thank you all for coming today and joining us to such special and relevant talk today. This is about blue wave generation. So I'm not sure how many of you here know how was life before the screens or smartphones. Most of us here, yes, we remember, but just a fun fact that children born after 2007, which was not long ago, do not know how the world was. So we have entered a generation of old teenagers that only know how to live with smartphones or with screens, with accessible content, and hence why surfing without limits. So our main question now is like digital screens are on our daily lives nowadays. It's just something that we cannot push out and we can't escape it. So how do we balance the risk and also the advantage that it brings to our modern society? Now, this is something that Professor Jackie will explore with us now.
Okay, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Antonio and Jerusa, for inviting me to share on this topic. The reason that the topic sort of being called the blue wave generation, because we are going to kind of go through, first of all, what is the effect on screen time or screening on digital devices, whether being iPhone or smartphone or iPad or whatever, because it emits a certain type of spectrum of light called the blue wavelength light. So I will kind of share a little bit on that one first, and then as we go along, I probably will share some of the view, borrow from other examples from different countries, policies, and maybe there are some kind of signs that we can take home. Especially last Friday, the DSCDJ has announced it that by starting from this year of September, there will be sort of a policy that in place that every single school they are going to have an installment of sort of putting cell phone from the students, and every day when they go to the class, before they go into the classroom, they have to store their cell phone inside this cabinet. So I've got a lot of questions from other friends and other teachers as well, and I probably will also share some of the view from them. And yeah, so as we go along, we'll probably share a point or two. Before we go further, I would like to ask you to listen to this particular audio, if you recognize some of them. Oh. Can somebody press the, yep. Okay. I'm sure that probably for few of you, it brought you to some kind of memory, down memory lane, right? Did you recognize the sort of first part of the audio? What is that? Yes, yes, ICQ, and if you remember that when Macau started to have internet connections, we usually plug into the phone line, right? And then what hassle about that is whenever somebody called in, or whenever somebody wants to use the phone, it kind of disrupts the connections, and then you have to redial again and again. So that was the age that probably some of us have went through. And then all of a sudden, in less than 10 years, we jumped from 56K all the way to DSL, and all the way to what we consider as fast internet. And then somehow this came along. How many of it have you used before? Maybe a few.
Friendster.
Probably here in the audience may not know of a particular sort of a social media platform called the 6 Degrees. Okay, it started in the States, and then all the way to what becomes currently the Facebook, and then Twitter now becomes the X, and then somehow Snapchat, TikTok, and Instagram, Clubhouse, that was a big hit in 2020, especially in between the COVID period. And now we enter an age called Meta, and then somehow other social media platforms, also including WeChat, came along. So the first part I would like to answer is, what is blue wave light? So I will show you this spectrum. So there are two ends of this spectrum of light. We call it the short wavelength light, and the other side will be long wavelength light. The lower the wavelength, at the end of the lower spectrum, it becomes a harmful type of lighting. The more nanometers that going towards on your right-hand side, it becomes harmless. So the blue wavelength light, which emits from our digital devices, usually accommodating between 380 nanometers to all the way to 500. And particularly the digital phone that we are holding right now, including iPad and even some of the very high resolution screen, they emit a certain type of lighting between 400 to 480. So this is what we call the blue wavelength light. What does that mean? Because blue wavelength lights actually have a direct effect on our brain functions. And how does it do that? It's through here. So light travels through our lens and all the way to retina macula. And then from then on, it travels to the brain. And inside the brain, we have a core structure called the SCN, suprachiasmatic nucleus. This is the core structure that controls or maintains or regulates circadian rhythm, which is the body clock. It regulates body temperatures, it regulates hormonal productions, cortisol, melatonin, which is somehow a very significant hormones that kind of drives our sleep. And so what happened in this picture is that blue wavelength light actually have a direct effect on our SCN, as is already proven in many of the research since the 1970s. And so as it travels, because of that particular spectrum of blue wavelength, it kind of disrupts or dysregulates our circadian rhythm, which in turn dysregulates our lots of different body functions. As you can see that one of the biggest effects on our body is the melatonin suppressions. So in our daytime, when we are looking into sunlight, then when we are exposed to sunlight, our SCN center become very stimulated by the lights that we are absorbing, which suppress our melatonin, which that brings us awake. And as we are going towards maybe probably evening, especially at this hour, the level of melatonin in our body starts to rise. And as you can see that if you are going to have a rising of melatonin, it makes us to feel sleepy. That's the human nature, sort of, that's how we made. But then there is a questions, because Macau is becoming or has becoming a 24 hours sleepless city. And people, especially working in the casino, the environment itself is purposefully designed to make you awake. That's why they put in bright light. In some company, they even put in a special spectrum of lighting that keeps your brain awake. I mean for sure, because they need to count the cards, they need to get the cash, they need to be very function and they need to be really awake. So that's how blue wavelength lights actually have an effect on our brain. So that's probably get rid of the first questions. Why did we call today's topic called the blue wave generation?
Very good. Facing with this presentation by Jackie, of course, I'm sure the audience have many questions today, because I'm here not just representing as an association or even the Macau civil society, but of course as a father, right? So when I face my kid, right, having so many direct access with the mobile phones, with the screen time, or returning for our generation was the TV, right? So we have many questions like this. Of course, I don't know if you have sort of these right answers, but is there a right age to give these devices to children? This is the first question, right? For example, when we go to the restaurant, right, it's very common, right? People are using the mobile phone, they are talking to each other, but they have a lack of communication now. Yeah. They don't enjoy the communication with the dad, with the mom, or with sister, and so on, right? So sometimes even those, for example, my wife, I can tell, she give only the mobile phone when we want to enjoy a little bit with our parents, for example, and maybe we'll give the mobile phone just a little bit, just for alternative learning gaming, okay? Gaming to learn the ABCs, or just more educational games. Is this a good alternative comparing to videos, just watching videos in YouTube?
Okay, so well,
yes.
I'm glad that you have a consensus with your wife over how you kind of control the sort of screen time or type of contents that your kids are looking at. It is true that throughout different age group, there are specific type of brain developments that which we required, and that we need to pay attention if we are exposed them too much of these particular, this particular spectrum of light. Like I'll give you an example. Like for example, how old is your kid again?
Now is 5.
Okay, so I'll give you this timeline. Mm-hmm. So the neurological effects having been impacted by the screen time, as we are talking about today. From age 0 to 5 years old, if you have a long duration or exposure to this particular lighting, it will have an effect, especially dealing with language development delay, neural response slowdown, and also melatonin suppressions. That's especially at the age where they have to start to develop themselves physically and mentally, and even intellectually, they need to be exposed and stimulated with lots of different, type of environments. So as we get older, the longer that we expose to this type of light, it will start to have another effect on other parts of the brain. For example, dealing with executive functions, attention deficits, and also decreased empathy. There is a particular research asking about or investigating how teenagers between the age of 11 to all the way to 18 years old, when they are looking at the social media through their phone, there is an inclination of getting the approval from the social media platform, like getting like or getting a heart or something. And then a group of scientists looking into this particular problem and realized that the more screen time that these teenagers are exposed to, it seems that it will affect their response towards reward. Meaning to say that because they exposed to this social media too much of a time, and they have this desire of getting more and more and more, and becomes a very narrow desire of reward system. So that's the only thing that that can be one of the ways we explain why teenagers, when they are feeling emotionally attached with the social media or the type of posting that they post online, and they kind of wanting to get that feedback. And as we go along, from 15 to 18 years old, some studies, especially dealing with guinea pigs, they realized that the exposure to blue wavelength light, it reduced gray matter, which somehow affects the connection between different neurons, which somehow it will numb them down, becomes insensitive, and it's sort of causing a cascading effect. So yes, there are substantial studies that talks about different age categorizations and the effect having by the lighting.
Okay. And another pertinent question, okay, is the accessibility of these screens in schools, because I see today many people from different schools here represented the education sector. There are schools that already limit or practically ban their use in the playground time, right? What is your view, Jackie? Since we are also expecting the guidelines in the future from the SEDJ.
I'm sure that in the audience, some of you might be coming from schools, if I may say it correctly. How many of you have seen how school dealing with storing the phone? Have you seen the cabinets? Have you seen the cabinet where they put the phone in? Have you all seen it? No? Yeah, you did? Okay. So because of this particular topic, I actually went out to ask a number of schools how they see it, teachers how they view this particular issue, and I also asked the students how they perceive this policy. So, and then I also look at some of the policy imposed by other countries. And there is sort of this understanding between the Eastern approach to the Western approach on this particular issue on managing screen time. I will show you a particular size on this one I have prepared. So the Eastern approach, I took China and also Singapore as an example. So China in 2021, they imposed a policy called a double reduction. Double reduction means that they asked the school across the country that they have to reduce the number of homeworks given to the students. At the same time, they also reduced the number of exams imposed on the students. And if you saw the news yesterday by CRED-DM, China also doubled down on a certain policy that asking the school across the country not to limit the type of homework given to the students. And they set a particular standard that, for example, children in primary school, the homework cannot exceed the workload of 40 minutes or something in a day. And children who, or teenagers who are in junior high school, the homework workload of this homework cannot exceed more than 1 to 2 hours, for example. So what I'm seeing is China is imposing a particular policy that is from a top-down approach. And they want to manage the problem. And at the same time, if you hear from a particular documentary released last year, the Chinese government also imposed a particular restriction on how much time kids can play online game. They restricted that every week they only be able to play online game for 3 hours. Okay, now, do you think that the teenager in China will actually follow it? No. The problem of that is between the metropolitan area and the rural area, there is a discrepancy in terms of monitoring how teenagers in these two particular areas, how they follow these different policies. And of course, some of the teenagers, they bypass this particular mechanism. They will go out and find a way of getting firewalls or something, and to kind of, getting into different, internet connection cards just to play that video game. And I asked a teacher in one of the schools in Macau. I said that, well, what do you think? Why do you think the government will impose this particular policy? And they told me this particular story. They said that, well, for the past 2 years, kids, they can bring their phone into school. It's just that they have to, during class time, they have to put it into their pockets or put it into the bag. And what happened was, during class time, the friends from other class or from the same cohort, they would chat each other and said that, okay, at this hour, 10:25, we will go to the toilet. Why? Because once they go to the toilet, they start to bring out their console and play the online game. And they got caught by the teachers. It's not once or twice, but many times. So the teacher got very frustrated, and they told the principal or the people in charge that, this cannot, go on forever. I mean, because it disrupts class. They're not following what the class is spelling out, and somehow it affects their learning. So, that is why on the perspective of the teachers, they are quite supportive towards this particular policy. And then I went on, and then I asked the students. Guess what the students told me? I asked them, would it work? I mean, do you like it, or do you have any point of view towards this particular policy? They said, well, I have 2 phones. And I will bring 2 phones. One, put into the cabinet. The second one, put in my pocket. So the Eastern approach, from this particular area that we see, this is sort of a top-down. I understand, I get it, because somehow China is too big, and there are different tiers of cities, and they have a different intake or different take on educations. So they need to kind of impose this policy for all, a standardized approach. However, in Singapore as well, they kind of have a restriction of certain age that they are not going to have a screen time. For example, 18 months, like under 18 months, 18 months old kids, they only allow screen time on chat, like video chat. Other than that, they are not allowed to use it. But whether the parents will follow this, that's another issue. Yep.
Well, thank you very much for those insights. I do have a little view that I would like to share also. I'm no expert in human psychology or anything, but I'm a mother of a toddler who doesn't listen much, and we all, I think a lot of us been through that stage. I mean, not a lot, but some of us. And I noticed that the more you restrict a child or children underage, the more they want something. So it's like you got to do reverse psychology a lot of the times, is that you let them and then, or you teach them whether the bads and the goods. And I know that there's been a research recently published about the extreme use of mobile devices, which Professor Jackie also showed me. I'm not sure if you have it today on the slide. And those images or that kind of knowledge, if given it appropriately to the youth, might be a good way of, let's say, following guidelines or doing a better, just making sure they are healthier in that way. And so it comes down to us in civil society or our education system should, make out our educational curriculum. Like before in my age, we had this civism class. So should we also include some sort of digital literacy for the younger generation instead of just banning? I'm not sure if there's any approaches done in the world similar that had good effect, and it was effective in not controlling but just limiting and making sure that the youth is growing up healthy and knowing how to use technology in a beneficial way, in a proper way. So something about our society has, parents, have people, and also educational systems especially. What are your views in this?
Okay. So we are actually standing in a crossroad of deciding our education system, how to put forward, because it seems that right now in some kind of universe that everything is pushed for technology, everything that has to apply for technology, that we have to integrate technology as part of pretty much every single subject's curriculum. So there is even by the government's policy agenda just coming out, last month, that the DSCEJ would like to the students to develop capacity in terms of applying technology, let alone just AI technology, into their learning. So there's one we call pro-tech education. Everything tech. However, when I was preparing for this particular sharing, I was thinking about, as what you said, media literacy. We should have our children to being exposed to certain knowledge and certain skill set as to if they are using the digital devices. These could be one of the tools, or this could be an inorganic extension of self to help them in their learning. So, at the same time, they need to know how to protect themselves from not too relying on this particular device. And there are countries that using this approach. For example, Denmark government actually put out a very detailed guidelines, same as the Australian, as to how to train up our kids inside the school system on media literacy. That they are being exposed to technology, and yet they restrict the timing of how much time a class should use technology as an aid to finding information or as an aid to go on to do research. But then somehow they also said that, okay, after you've done that, researching using technology, you pull back the students in the classroom and have a succinct discussion with the teachers, face to face. Like, you gotta have the problem putting in front of them, and they will use the information which they searched before, and then they are going to have a logic argument or have a logical discussion based on this information. So Denmark is doing that. Germany, however, did something similar, and at the same time, Finland. I'm sure that when if you are studying for education degree, some of the professor might give you an example on how Finland's education system design. They use kind of play-based interventions in their curriculum, and yet Finland, before 2025, they all go for pro-tech education. Yes. However, just last month on the newspaper that the Finland government's, the Education Bureau, said that from now on, we have to return to the original of education, meaning to say that we are moving away from technology. But they are not moving away completely. They're saying that we have to entrain our next generation of young people to know better on how to use this device as an extension of self in terms of learning, but not controlled by it. They should learn how to harness the power of technology and not to be a slave of a technology. So the Finnish governments actually imposed an idea and also a policy on the school system saying that, okay, we should move away, and then we should design a classroom, let's just say 45 minutes a class. If that particular class has to deal with something in computer science or something that's all techie savvy style, then the 30 minutes of the time, then they can use technology. The rest of them, they have to return back into this face-to-face interacting mode. And then they just started. So it seems that they are moving away from that, and some are creating a different discussion, especially dealing with this topic.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And another little comment. I do believe that now that we are entering the AI world, the world of AI, we somehow, like for example, has someone in the media field, you sometimes have a little bit of this fear of missing out in the, and using it or catching up with the trends of this new tool. And I'm sure that a lot of parents are also have this stress of instilling this this new technology for the children. Like they have to learn, they have to spend time with the devices or with the technology to be able to keep up with the others or keep up with the new reality. Now it's my question is, how are we going to also incorporate that not incorporate, but how to keep up with the trend, yet we are also making sure that the youth or the children are in touch with the basic human being surroundings, like the environment or the nature, because we do I believe that the government is also pushing for some new recreational spaces, some more green spaces, even though Macau is quite small, but how to do this balance?
Okay, I would like to show you this particular. It's really depending on which age group we're talking about here, and so when I went in and asked the students what they are expecting from this policy, they said that, well, there are a couple of them. Some of them are in junior high, some of them are senior high. They said that, well, I'm in senior high. I'm like, now I'm in year 12. I don't mind. Why? Because I'm just staying for 1 year and then I can go, and then I can do whatever I want because I'll be at a university. And then, however, the other part that I asked junior high students, they said that, well, it's really up to the school, because I spend 8 hours in the school, and if they want to impose this particular policy, I have no choice. If you go on to the elementary school, well, they still have time to train that kind of media literacy that we were just saying. So what I'm seeing the problem is, because I understand that some school really wanted to get ahead with the technology world. And some of the school already implement that, when you go to school, you don't need to carry books. Everything is on online platform. But then the teachers are also struggle. It seems that the teachers, the students, and also our policy, they're not aligning on the same starting point. We have seen a different generation of teachers being in the same school. If you are now consider yourself as 50, 60 years old, you're not coming from that background. Perhaps you know the term AI, but you still have not used it. If you are coming from the generation of late 70s or early 80s, you probably use ChatGPT, or let alone DeepSeek. But the new generation are different because they are being exposed to this kind of culture. And I saw teachers at the younger generations, when they are discussing this particular topic with the older generations or the senior generations, they said that, well, they have no problem accepting, but it's just that if we are imposing this idea on the students, then we must work with the kids, work with the students on how we are going to achieve the goal, as to either is the government wants to ban all the phone from schools, or are we just limiting them or restricting them from using the phone for 8 hours per day? Or are we thinking about, well, as a school, we want to entrain them with their habits that not just within these 8 hours within the school, but after they're going back home, they can still have that kind of discipline of using the phone. What do we want to achieve? If we want to just simply ban the phone from school, I mean, it's easier to get it done. I mean, the policy is coming from September. It's starting from September, so you just lock the phone in the cabinet and it's fine. But the next step should be, how are we going to help and support the students that they are able to develop a sense of self-autonomy and self-discipline when they face technology. And there are examples that even in the European countries, Denmark, Germany, and even Finland, they also encounter difficulties and challenges. They said that with the secondary high school students, because they already developed that kind of autonomy of using the device and also being hooked onto social media, the intervention program that they impose in this country, they said that there's still a discrepancy. And in some countries, they are so large that they have a sort of completely difference between the metropolitan area and also the more secluded area. The policy interventions does not work effectively in those secluded areas, because simply, if we want to replace this with providing extracurricular activities, getting them to be engaged with other activities and stuff, the secluded or rural area students, they just don't have that resources. And while that happens, we also have to understand the different socioeconomic class, students coming from different family background. Study shows that students coming from lower socioeconomic class, they are more inclined to attach to this, because simply they just don't have that resources to go and do something else. So I think that the policy is just a first step for us to think about, to buy us time to think about how are we going to approach this issue with a more systematic intervention. And perhaps we should also invite the teenagers into the conversation, that acting as a problem-solving class or something, that what can we do together in order to achieve the goal that not to be a slave of this. Yeah.
Very good intervention, Jackie. But this create more and more questions, of course, because we are just focusing now until now we are focused on the younger generation, right? But we are forgetting also the seniors, right? Because let's be honest, when I go home, I also see my father touching the phone. So when we have this crossover, like you said, the kid is in the school, right?
Yeah.
But he is coming back to home, eating the dinner and so on. Maybe is not connected with the phone, but somehow see the parents or see the grandfather or whatever who is touching the phone. So how but he's, for example, the grandpa wants to show something on YouTube for the grandchildren, right? So he approached to the grandfather. Oh yes, I want to see also the cartoon you are showing, and then they will be there half an hour, right? This is a common example, right? So my question is, yes, we can limit in the school, right, or even in the outside environment. But when we get home, we also have this situation. But of course, it's difficult to avoid because there's inside each home we have our rules inside, right? But such guidelines should be also, of course, the government cannot impose guidelines for everyone, right? But at least maybe this approach needs to be also connected with the civil society someday. University discussion, like Jerus also set one example. Maybe even the school have a class just somehow to orientate these situations to not be a slave of the only from the mobile phone, like you said. Is this like even Macau comparing to Europe? We see sometimes the YouTube is have the YouTube Kids, right? The Netflix in Macau already have the Netflix just for the kids. But somehow, for example, the YouTube Macau doesn't have these limitations for the YouTube. So what content the kids or even somehow with loss of connection the older generation is showing to the younger generation? Right? You know what I mean in this, right?
So you're talking about inside, like, okay, so there are two questions here. So one is the policy intervention should be extended not just within the school but outside of the school system.
Yes.
Hopefully be able to kind of extend it to sort of a campaign that being conducted by the whole society. Second is dealing with inside the family, how the adults reach certain consensus between each member of the family and be able to come into an agreement that when is the best time to show the phone to or digital means to the children and how to carry this out. Australia, in New South Wales government, they put out a guidelines in this one. They said that, well, we should limit the recreational screen time for children. And yet they know that in reality they cannot avoid it. So they also suggested to impose certain way, first of all, that devices before bedtime. They said no device before bedtime. 2, co-viewing. Like if they really want to look at some content, whether being funny video or somehow semi-educational, then parents or grandparents will have to also play that role as to co-viewing with the children with limited time. And that will also come down to the discussion between you and your wife.
Exactly.
And I also think about, is it because the modern society, the modern lifestyles that so busy that each member in the family, they really desire to have a me time. And yet they are not getting it. And that's why when you go out for dinner, for example, with a group of friends, you bring your kids, and then somehow you enjoy that moment, and yet your kids they are screaming, and somehow they require attention, and yet you try to entertain both sides, and at the same time your brain is telling you, well, I want to have a moment with my friends, so I will just pull out these tricks so that my kids can kind of have their own time, and I can also enjoy more. I think the modern society is lacking. I'm not saying this is training, but sort of like in our generation, we have to get to a point where we know when we can enjoy boredom. Feeling or be enjoying boredom is an art itself, and I'm not sure we're getting that. And if you look at the teenager, for example, now if they sit down, waiting for the bus, or if they sit down in a coffee shop and waiting for someone, they're all pulling out their phone for no apparent reason. Maybe they just checked the message, 30 seconds ago. They pull it back into their pocket, and then somehow some desire inside just want to kind of kick that demon out. That I need to put it again for no apparent reason, no purpose.
Yes.
So I think that in a way that I will try to bring in that issue that, well, maybe first of all the society itself needs to tackle an issue that how are we going to train the next generation to enjoy boredom? And it's the society getting us the me time. At the same time, can we fight the demon of this desire of pulling out the phone? When I am sort of preparing and looking at different information for this talk, it brings me more questions than answers, really. Like for example, like the pro-tech education and the protect from tech education, I still don't know what the current society wanting us to go for. It's like we want them to be integrated in this technological world, and yet it's like giving a kid a Ferrari and then asking them to not drive more than 80 kilometers per hour. I don't know. I'm not sure whether this will work. But however, that co-viewing has been suggested within the family that can help the kids to navigate through this screen time issue.
Well, I think I have more and more questions, of course, but I think it's fair also because we have an audience today here. This is also the intention of this talk today, to have some interactions. If you want to have some questions, I think at least from education sector or not, the public, I think even young people, I think they are interested to ask some questions to Professor Jackie Ho here. I may pass the questions.
Sure, okay.
Yes. Maybe someone who wants to raise a question, I think it's the right time. Gilberto. Yes, Gilberto.
Thank you for coming. It was very interesting topic. I didn't touch my phone except just checking. I was afraid of the blue light. I think nobody touched the phone in the meantime as well. I'm from the education field, and I want to ask, if we lower our light, I'm not a specialist on this, if we lower our light, the brightness is less harmful for our eyes?
You mean lower the brightness of the light?
No, of my phone.
Of your phone. Is that the only question?
Yes.
Okay. Right now, there are sort of these filter sheets that you can put on your phone or your iPad, or even you have glasses that claim to sort of block out the blue wavelength light. It's true that during the day, when we're exposed to these particular devices, yes, blue wavelength light, blue light will emit from these devices, but it's more so when you are viewing these particular devices in the dark. in the bedroom.
Okay.
That is more harmful
Okay.
because
Of the contrast.
of the contrast, and because there it also emits the more intense blue light, and directly to your eyes and from your eyes to your brain center. And that is why the National Sleep Foundation recommended the 10 recommendations to improve sleep. One of them is that no viewing whatsoever, no touching on the computer whatsoever before bedtime, because it's been researched for a long time that this has a direct effect. So I would steer away from looking at the phone in darkness, even if you put your blue wavelength lights blocking out the glasses. You know, yeah.
Okay. And my second question is: there's any difference between a projector, the screen we see from the projector,
Yeah,
and from this TV display or mobile phone?
TV display. I look at some of the what type of devices they will emit blue wavelength light. So we understand that phone, computer, iPad, but they also suggested that they have a TV with really high pixel and resolution OLED. Yeah, those emit blue light as well.
Okay.
Yep. So that's why they will recommend to turn down the tone, so that it won't be as harmful as it will be.
Okay. But I'm saying the projector.
Yeah, it's the same?
Yeah,
it's the same thing. So that's why projector nowadays they have a different they already adjusted the intensity of the light emitted from the light bulb. Yep. And research, there is a particular paper that I actually put on the screen before. It's the research is investigating different types of light spectrum, because we have violets, we have green light, we also have red light, under this spectrum of lighting. And they said that comparatively speaking, the negative effect will be blue light. Others will have a minimum effect, but not significant. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you for your presentation. Of everything you said, the most difficult point to me is the co-viewing, because I find it very difficult, less and less common. The big ones, the grandparents, their children and the grandchildren all together co-viewing. I think it's very, very difficult to have this in practice, because the interests are so different.
Yeah.
It's not, of course, one can sacrifice and say, okay, let me keep his company or the company just for a while. But normal people will find very difficult this to manage the same interest. Even in a couple, the husband likes the football, to see the match, a soccer match. The wife prefers to see anything else, a Korean serial or whatever. But how can you put it? Even if you split the screen in the TV with two different subjects, it's very difficult to have these people. So what is really the alternative, a realistic alternative to monitor and to help the young ones to be moderate in their use of these devices?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a sociologist. I think, I'm not sure whether he's American or what. He said that there's a changing dynamic in the family. He said that, well, beforehand, when the family has only one TV, the family will have a time to sit down together, no matter what, this particular time, 7:30, 8 o'clock, they will sit down together and watch TV. No matter what the TV show is, sometimes it may not be, of the interest of every single family members. But they said that that particular type of family activity has its function to keep the family together, and at the same time that entrain the different members in the family to compromise. And now I can tell you what my view is. The co-viewing intervention from suggested by other countries. For one thing, that they suggested, they recommended because they have to really. Second is I'm not sure if this could imply as the current generation of our youth. And there's one particular reason that I could think of why to explain this, because we have so many choices. For example, have you ever go into the hotel and start to viewing on the TV channels, especially on news channel? There are many. Al Jazeera, like BBC, CGTV or whatever. And literally, you can tell by yourself, like when you press that remote control, going from one channel, you listen to like 3 seconds, 2 seconds. You don't like it, maybe you don't like the presenter, TV presenter or whatever, you switch to another channel. Have you ever done that? The problem with our current society is that maybe we are being bombarded by too many options that we just don't know what to choose. And nobody guides us in choosing what we want. And at the same time, it seems that we haven't have that kind of culture of compromising with each other and spending time with each other. The purpose of spending time with each other is not just focus on the content of the TV or particular this. It's to really spend that moments together and create that memory. In our current society, we don't. I think it's a problem. Really, I mean, if you ask me that, the government put out this particular policy, it will work, definitely it will work within the school setting. It will work for that 8 hours period, but it will not be able to have that lasting effect on the teenagers to bring it home. And it won't even create that sense of judgment as to what is the correct way to use it themselves or what is the correct way to use it with the family. So that's why Antonio asked the question just then, like, after this first act of the policy, I think my suggestion is that the government should put together a task force to look at this problem as the real issues that we are facing today, affect everyone, even with the family, as to how we're going to approach this and how we're going to help the next generation of youth. The secondary high school students, sorry, there's not much you can do with them. It's their life, they have autonomy, whatever. It is the younger generation that we have to pay attention to. And it's also the younger generation that we should start from zero to work out proper solutions, not just within the family education, but also within school curriculum design. When I look at the curriculum of one particular school, when I look at it, I mean, I'm sure the teachers could actually give me a few ropes here. We have different subjects, yeah? We have the English, Chinese, mathematics, science, da, da, da. This particular model of it is sort of like separating knowledge, distancing. Have you ever wondered why students in Macau, I'm not talking about students in the international school, I'm talking about students in Macau, they have a subject called English, right? Have you ever wondered why, after a decade of learning English, they still struggle? And I asked the teachers, I said, I don't quite understand this problem because I'm not coming from an education background, so I don't understand. They said that, well, you look at English as a subject, you have the reading, you have the listening, you have the dictation, and you also have a particular subject called the grammar. And I said, well, how students learn grammar? They said, well, in the olden day, they learn grammar by remembering the sort of the formatting, you know, present continuous tense, present verbs plus ing. That's how they remember it, right? Everything is separated. That's why when they go into the real world, when they have to put everything together, they struggle. So, and I was thinking about, what about in our current education design? Can we do something like this? Like, for example, when we read about, I remember I had an engineering class when I was in school in Australia. The teacher, you know, year 11, they said, okay, let's look at, let's investigate how, let's understand how humans fly through history. I said, okay, that's interesting. So he brought us, you know, the number of the timeline and also the number of, you know, innovator, you know, that how they, you know, some of them sacrifice their life, some of them, you know, pushing forward in this technology to bring man to the sky. Okay, so that's the history part. But while he was developing this sharing, he also think that, okay, he asked us, what is it with the design of this particular structure that can help us to fly? He said, oh, would it be the material of the wing? Will it be the aerodynamics of the design? The teacher will go in to investigate this problem in different aspects. And it got us very interesting, very intriguing, because you're not just learning about the history. You're learning about history plus the material science. You're learning about material science, and yet you're learning about the design of it. And then somehow students will develop a more comprehensive understanding of how man could fly in the sky. Same as maybe like, I'm just taking, you know, sort of, you know, thoughts sharing that maybe when we bring a group of kids to the park, if we have any park anymore, we bring a group of kids, students to a park. We can look at it from a biology perspective. That okay, now okay, let's look at, you know, particular insects, and then we also be able to take the kids to learn about the ecosystem of why this particular being could live in this setting. And then probably we can go into the chemistry, and then we can go into the urban design of this particular setting. What I'm suggesting is that the current curriculum design is sort of making us feel like that we are distancing. But maybe we should tackle it in a more comprehensive way. Of course, you may argue, especially those who are coming from education background, that, okay, well, then they have to learn about the basic in order to make that judgment, right? I get it. Well, but how can, so when I learn about how man can fly in the sky, they start from a minimal basic, but they develop that knowledge along the way. This is just for sharing of my thoughts, you know, because I get it why some students, they are losing interest in learning, especially at a very young age. They lose interest in learning. The cascading effect is they will lose interest in navigating their life's interest and exploring oneself. And then we see that in the university quite often. Students coming in, you ask them, you know, why do they want to choose this particular subject? They don't know. They don't know how to give that real answers to you. They're just giving you the answers that you as the individual want. That because I want to help, because I want to be something. But you know that deep inside their hearts, they have second thoughts. So it's getting too far, but you know, it's, yeah.
Thank you, Jackie.
That's why in this particular, that, you know, coming into probably concluding this session, I want to hear their voice. Because when I'm going around and asking the questions for this particular sharing, asking the teacher, asking the school principal, I also ask the young people, how can we solve this? They're targeting you. They're not targeting me, they're not targeting the parents, they're targeting you. So how can you make us feel confidence that you have the ability to make judgment on harnessing this particular device? They might come up with a very innovative solution.
I don't know if you have more questions. Okay, yes, this gentleman.
Thank you for your presentation. I usually take online classes on the internet, and sometimes the classes last for about 1 or 2 hours per class. And many times I take 2 or 3 classes per day in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening. But I do not watch this on the screen on the PC, but I do connect it to a large screen like this one. Now, with constant viewing, will this affect my brain or no? And then sometimes, sure, I tune into the YouTube and I like to listen to the music, and they are very, very nice. And if I continue doing this every day, will this affect my brain? And what is your recommendation? Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that when you're saying that you're having an online class on the big screen, your question will be, will this big screen affect
That's
the
right.
function of it? Okay, so what I'm saying is from a research perspective, anything that dealing with digital means, especially screen, emitting blue light, a prolonged exposure will definitely have an effect on our core center in the brain, which controls the bodily functions. However, there is another aspect, is at what time of the day that you are actually looking at this particular devices. If you are in the morning, then which means that your brain you allow your brain itself to have the time to detox. Okay, I'll show you once. For some reason, I put this into my information because this is an fMRI. And for those of you who understand that sleep is not a resting state, sleep is an active state. What that means is the brain itself has been exposed to so many stimulations throughout the day, okay, throughout five senses. And then the brain will have to have time to process it. And at the same time, the brain itself will accumulate waste. Now, from a biology point of view, that when a body accumulates waste, we have a certain channel to excrete the waste through body fluid, through feces, through the metabolism of the body. At the same time, what about the waste that accumulate in the brain? Now, study found that from this particular MRI that during our sleep state, our brain will kick in this vacuum mode that will help to clear out the accumulated waste that we accumulated throughout the day. So my answer to this particular questions is that it is indeed very crucial as to what time of the day that we are viewing this. If it's in the morning, then we will have to allow our brain to rest and then allow our brain to have a proper time to detox. And because as of this moment, we still believe that the accumulation of the waste will certainly have an effect on our cognitive ability. In turns, that will increase our risk to develop dementia. That's what the conventional way believes. Of course, we can go into detail as to maybe the photos of that particular brain cell being photo-ops by some other scientists, that will have to leave to another discussion. But somehow, yes, it is the conventional beliefs that the brain itself will accumulate waste throughout the day, and yet sleep or rest is a time to allow our brain to detox.
I think
If you want to know about more sleep, then yeah, we can talk about that afterward.
thanks so much, Jackie. I think it's almost 8 o'clock. I think the people also want to rest, exactly.
Yep.
They want to rest and also take it
Detox.
in. But I think today we have a very interesting conversation because this takes many questions for sure. But Jackie, I think you expose or at least let us know more and more about this topic. It's a very realistic topic today. So I think this topic should be also more and more exposed in not only the schools but also within the society, because I think this is a reality. This is a reality. The AI will approach soon. So I think we must be balanced, and every time we put the phone in the pocket, and no matter how, no reason at all, we take back the phone, we should remember what Jackie said today and not be just attached to this. Okay, we try to, now I'll be a little bit nostalgic when we go back on time, when I just enjoy playing with my friends, have some soccer, have a chat, reading a book in the end with my mom. But I think today is kind of difficult. We try to balance the time as best we can, especially who have kids at home, okay?
Your audience has been first class.
Yes.
I haven't seen somebody pulling out their phone or having their face be turning into blue.
That's very good. That's very good.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jackie.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jerusa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a small promotion, because it's also for the Requiem Foundation, because tomorrow you have another topic, completely different. It's about the mechanisms. So everyone interested about tomorrow, the challenges of mechanisms, you can come up to the Requiem Foundation. Thank you once again, Requiem Foundation, for the logistic support. Thanks so much. Thank you, Jackie. Again.
This deserves a part.